50th City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
Now, today we've got two very excellent speakers. Barry, who's a great friend of the club, is going to be talking on visa issues, which can obviously affect us all and interest us all. So thank you for coming and giving us the latest information. And afterwards, we're going to be hearing from Amy. Her first talk at the club is how to be successful in your visa applications, or how to be successful at anything, pretty much. So, welcome to the stage. Oh, as I should say all the time, switch your phones off or to vibrate, okay? And if you really needed to take a call, walk outside. It always seems strange when we're in this room. Getting into the room is like painful because it's like, you know, steps and everything. But then once you're in, it's actually sort of got quite an intimate atmosphere. All right, Barry, welcome once more and thank you for doing this.
Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to Alphabet Soup, which is what visas have become, isn't it really? DTV, do you all know what that is? LTR, VE, visa exempt, not the same as VOI, visa on arrival. So anyway, we'll do our best to, in fairly easy terms, take you through what are the current trends. I just finally, in the introduction, point out to you that when I speak to you about these matters, I speak as an individual. I do not represent any outside organisation, and I don't mind or care how you spend your money. I just give it you as I personally see it at these meetings. Okay, hopefully someone's going to press a button and a slide will appear. I'll make sure it's the right one. Yep, okay. So what's the context at the moment in the world of Thai visas and immigration? What's the paradigm shift, as Thomas Kuhn, the scientist, would call it? Well, I think there are a number of things going on that were not necessarily true in the past. The first is that the current government is very keen on encouraging tourists to come for as long as possible. You know that. The 60-day visa exempt only applies to half the countries in the world, 60 days visa exempt, but it applies to about 95% of all tourists because the other countries not included don't send many people. How often do you see a jetliner arriving at Suvarnabhumi Airport from North Korea, the Vatican, or the Central African Republic? Not too often, I suspect. So that's the context of the government to look to tourism as a way of boosting the national treasury because the national GDP is not as high as it should be, and there are a lot of programs to fund. That's one context. Another is that increasingly when you need to apply to an embassy for a visa of any kind, you don't actually turn up there anymore. It's dying. And instead you apply online, and the documentation has to be uploaded and sent to the embassy with varying results because embassies vary a lot on what they particularly want and what photocopies and what stamps are on the back of your bank statement and all that. It varies, but that's the trend, and it's important to recognise that embassies all over the world, and not only Thai embassies abroad, don't really want to see you. Another thing in the wind is the electronic travel authorization, which means that people who, starting sometime next year, people who don't need a visa of any kind but just want to turn up, you know, with a suitcase, their hat and coat and dollars in their pocket, okay, the 60 days visa exempt, for example, they won't be able to do that for much longer. Quite soon, those who don't have a visa will have to apply online again to the electronic travel authorization, which is by any other name a visa. I mean, you have to put your address on it. That may do away with the TM30. Nobody's thought about that, have they? Suppose you have to electronically give your address for the first time. maybe that'll disappear. I'm not confident it will. I just put it out in case you're desperate for good news. So the electronic travel authorization will apply in advance of anyone coming here who doesn't have a visa. How it'll work, I don't know, but it's coming up, and I think it will mean that everybody entering Thailand either has a visa or they have a pseudo visa, this electronic travel authorization. Another trend that's going on at the moment in immigration here is that more agencies, government agencies, are getting involved in the granting or at least the authorization of visas. I'm not saying the Ministry of the Interior and the Immigration have no role. I'm saying it's a shared role now. If you want one of those elite or privilege visas, you apply to the Ministry of Tourism for it. If you want a certain sorts of work-related visas, or the LTR, the long-term residence visa, 10 years, you apply to the Board of Investment. And the most recent initiative of the DTV, I'll come to that later, the Destination Thailand visa, you have to apply to embassies abroad, and the people who are sponsoring it is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, not the immigration. It's been very silent, which could or may not be ominous about the future of it. They've said nothing. Multi-government age, I've come to that, and we've done that one. There is a working party, which I just bring to your attention, that's been working now for 4 months, or have they ever had a meeting? We'll never know, but it was announced in July there would be a working party on non-immigrant visas. Some of you know what they are, you've got one, because they're rapidly becoming outmoded. There is a non-immigrant visa, for example, if you want to learn Muay Thai, Thai boxing. Well, you don't need it now. You can do that through the Destination Thailand visa, as you can apply for a visa through DTV if you have children here or a wife, rather than the traditional non-immigrant visa. There's a lot of confusion between the non-immigrant O and the non-immigrant OA. I think a lot of us would be happy if it was left ambiguous, but that's also on the agenda. So there could be a lot of changes to non-immigrant visas round the corner, or maybe you'll never hear anything about it again. It's a 50-50 decision. And finally, in the agenda, there's the 6 countries, 1 destination visa, which is championed by Thailand in particular, because it's the biggest of the countries involved. And this would mean, following the Schengen visa in Europe, that if you entered any one of 6 countries, Cambodia, Vietnam, others, and Thailand, once you entered one and presumably paid a fee, you could go to all the others without filling in any more forms like Schengen and without paying any fee. This is, of course, a very good idea, but I think people have underestimated rather strongly the opposition. Take the example of Cambodia, for example. If you first came to Thailand and got stamped in with your 6-country visa, wonderful. And then you go to Cambodia, it doesn't cost you anything, right? But at the moment, if you go to Cambodia, it costs you $30 to $40, as you all know, as a tourist fee to get into the country. So they could suffer a lot of loss of income in Cambodia, and that's those issues you multiply across 6 countries, you see that it might be some time before that comes in. Slide number 2, if you please. I have to turn around to check. Oh, there you go. Okay, there are a number of visas for people over 50, and I know most of you are over 50. There's a couple there not, I know, but mostly are. So there are a number of visas aimed specifically at retirees. One is the OA visa, which you can only apply for if you apply at an embassy. And it's for 12 months. You can actually make it spin out for 2 years if you're very clever when you first get it. Anyone who wants to know how to do that, I'll hang around at the end of the meeting for about half an hour in case it's relevant to you. Once you go for an extension at the immigration, it just becomes 12 months. You can't do anything about it then. The big problem with it is it has medical insurance, which is many people try to get rid of it. It's awkward to get rid of. You've got to make sure you cancel it before you leave the country, or you come back and you find that they've just given you in a multi-entry a bit longer. Difficult, but you cancel it. if you don't like it, because of the medical insurance. However, medical insurance here is not particularly difficult. There are all sorts of medical policies I've seen that don't do anything for you while you're living. It's only after you're dead that you get any money. It's not a lot of use, is it, if you break your leg on the succumbit highway? So I'm not sure that all the fears about medical insurance are always borne out by the reality of what's happening on the ground. But there you are, I understand. And if you get rid of it, you'll probably move to the next one. Hello, next one, please. Which is the O retirement, which will be familiar to many of you, I'm sure, probably the most popular visa in the room. I think it's much underestimated and undervalued, personally. Funnily enough, I wrote about that this morning in the Patio Mail. I think it's a very good visa. It costs you next to nothing, and even if you don't have any money, you can get somebody else to loan it to you, you know. I mean, come on, you know, this is the O visa, and just because you have to turn up at the immigration or do online a 90-day or get fined 1,600 for not filling in a TM30 in address form or all the other details that we know about. So what? You know, you look at the advantages of it. There's nothing to compare it, in my view, with anything else available internationally. I may be wrong, but I think not, particularly if it doesn't carry medical insurance at the moment, which is another one. There is also the OX visa, which seems to be not here, seems to have got missed out. Is it there? Oh, it's on the other side. Oh, it's more complicated than I thought, sorry. The OX visa is a 10-year retirement visa that no one much has ever heard of. It was introduced in 2017 by the post-coup military government in an attempt to boost the number of retirees here. It never took off the ground. The then Prime Minister from the military coup said he was sat in his office waiting to receive shoals of applications of people wanting that. But in fact, it never happened because it's extremely complex to apply for. You need a police clearance in your own country. You get checked every so often on whether you've still got the money in the bank or whether you've spent it all. A lot of other bureaucratic difficulties meant that it never got off the ground. I'd be very surprised if anyone here has it, but if they do, you know, well done, you survived the bureaucracy. But it was never clear what the advantages were. And lastly, the LTR. The LTR, long-term residence, is 10 years. It's an octopus visa. That is, it has many ways to get into it, and you can't easily generalize about it. It's aimed at global citizens, whoever they are, business people. You can work with it, you can be a digital nomad with it, and you can be a retiree. And all these sections have their own rules. But you're mostly retirees, so forget about it unless you've got an annual income of at least US dollars 80,000 a year. And it also has very strict medical insurance rules. You can't produce a document, say, oh look, I'm covered, when it only pays out 500 baht when you're dead, in an unusual way, falling off the back of a truck at 20 miles an hour. You know what insurance companies are for not paying anything. You can forget it. It's a strict medical insurance and monitored, as I said earlier, by the Board of Investment. It's very dominant. It's given in Bangkok by the Board of Investment to share offices with the immigration in Bangkok in a special office. The next slide, there are other long-term visas not specifically aimed at retirees, though you can muscle in on them if you want. There's the privilege or the elite visa, introduced in 2003 by then Prime Minister Taksim, and it was promoted at first on the grounds you'd be able to own land, one rai, and build a house on it for you and your beloved. In fact, that never happened. You can't buy a rai of land like that, and as soon as that was known, it began to sink, and it's had a checkered history ever since. It's quite expensive, 900,000 baht for 5 years, but there are other options within it. It's a complex visa, can last up to 20 years and involve families. One of them even has a semi-right to work, although not quite, but it sort of leans in that direction. It's popular at the minute, not with people like us, who don't have 900,000 to throw at it. Chinese business people like it because they come in and out of the country a lot, and they think it's less bureaucracy for them to do it. But it's not. It's got a rival perhaps in the DTV, the Destination Thailand Visa, we'll come to in a minute. There's also the other long-term residents that I referred to a moment ago, not for retirees, several categories of business people and digital nomads and so on. But you're subject to audit every 5 years with this 10-year visa, and some people believe that may prove to be a hurdle, but I think not many people in this room are concerned with the non-retiree aspects of the LTV. There's also a smart visa, which doesn't concern you. It's particularly popular in that most underrated of all institutions, the Eastern Economic Corridor, which is a hive of business activity and technological expertise not far from here, around Rayong, and this visa is aimed at very high-skilled foreigners who are working in S-curve or technologically revolutionary industries, you know, electric cars and AI, artificial intelligence and all the rest of it. It's a 4-year visa, so it's not suitable for most people here today, but it is unique in the sense that it's the only visa that doesn't require a separate work permit. And then finally, there is permanent residence. Is that over the other side? Yep, it is. Permanent residence now is quite difficult. A lot of people think it's a visa you apply for with a fee and the next day you're a permanent resident. It's not. It's a discretion vested in the Thai government, and they monitor it now very carefully. It's not easy to get. You've got to have worked at least 3 years with a work permit and be thought to be worthy of Thailand in the sense you've done something spectacular. There was someone the other day who told me they'd gone for the interview and they were asked, can you sing the Thai national anthem in Thai? To which they replied, I can't even sing the English national anthem in English. If we move over to the next slide, DT. This is the one that's causing all the publicity at the moment, the DTV, Destination Thailand Visa. There are at least 2 Facebook groups who discuss nothing else but the ins and outs of this visa. We could be here till midnight tonight. We wouldn't even begun to have scratched the surface, particularly of the different interpretations put on it by the different embassies all around the world. Because at the beginning, you were supposed to only apply for it in your country of passport. And then they said, well, maybe you can apply for it if you're working or you're a long time somewhere. And then they said, well, yeah, maybe you can apply for it if you go on a visa run somewhere. So it's got a lot slacker. You can't apply for it within Thailand, and it would be very foolish to lie about that, because your passport would show, wouldn't it, whether you were in Thailand or not, to the immigration. They could later say you deceive them, so don't do that. There are people who fake their address, very dangerous, because your passport would show you were in Thailand when you're supposed to be queuing up at some Thai embassy abroad. It's the brainchild of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, not the immigration, which have been silent on the matter, and it's available, or was available, from 2024. I did put 29-24. Oh no, it's been changed. I did 29-24. Not 2024. It's right now. Do you have to blame for any spelling mistakes? You have to blame Mimi. We have a cat, 17, who tries to jump on the computer table and can't quite make it anymore, and she upsets it. So it leads to problems like that. The 10-year, the Destination Thailand visa is for 5 years, maybe, a multiple entry, and it has to be activity related. If you are a remote worker or a digital nomad, this was the market that the government was aiming for, but it mustn't be a digital nomad who has any connection with the Thai economy. It mustn't have any customers here, mustn't market it here. It's supposed to be working outside Thailand completely, but wanting to do it sat on the beach in Thailand while you earn money abroad. The idea that it's a visa that you can work in Thailand with is a total myth, I'm afraid. Another way to get it, it's another octopus visa. There's arms and legs everywhere. is if you have soft power. Soft power is a rather strange expression, but it means that you want to take advantage of something that Thailand offers that's soft rather than hard, like a military coup or the army or getting arrested or executed, not that sort of thing. Soft power. So you want to learn cookery, okay, there's a way in there. You want to learn Muay Thai, how to throw people over your shoulder. You can do that. If you have a family here, you can turn it to your advantage. And it's 180 days on entry, and it's very popular. Now, can you extend it for a further 180 days? Because the rules say you can apply after the 180 if you want to stay here for another 180 without leaving the country at the Thai immigration. The early evidence is that might be more difficult than you think. Although it's not universal, but one or two people who have asked at the immigration bureau, local immigration, have been told, well, we need to see a lot of documents for that. Just because you had a dentist appointment with one tooth out 2 months ago, are you really saying that qualifies you for 5 years? All those issues are beginning to come round, and without doubt, sooner or later, there will be, I think, changes to that visa, but what they are is entirely speculative and I think not worth spending time on here. You're not exempt from the 90 days report either. So the commonly asked questions, don't know whether commonly asked questions are there, are they? Yes, they are. There they are. Will you be able to just come in for the next 5 years if you have it? No one will ask any questions. Nobody knows. Probably not many questions, I think, at airports, more at the local immigration, I think, if you try to expend it. You cannot work with it. You can only work abroad. It's not really an alternative to retirement visas and so on, because it's supposed to be an activity-related one, and you're not sure yet whether you will really be able to largely live in Thailand on a DTV. As I say, after 6 months, you might have to leave the country, you might not so clear. Certainly once a year you have to leave the country. So a lot of question marks over it. I'd hang on to my non-O if I were you, rather than go for this one if you're a retiree. And will it survive intact or not at all? Nobody knows. I just wonder whether most people who have the DTV are vaguely aware of what we heard last week, from Thomas Carden. Are they aware that if you spend 180 days or more in Thailand, you could be subject to Thai personal income tax? I would venture the guess that the vast majority of people who've applied for the DTV, many of whom have never been to Thailand before, haven't the faintest idea what we'll be talking about. Okay, if we move over to personal, this is, I prepared these notes before I knew Thomas Carden was coming last week, so I'm not going to spend long because I don't know the answers any more than you do. Thomas Carden last week about personal income tax and overseas income remitted to Thailand, it has to be remitted, suggested that all of us who are here 180 days should register, whether or not you think you owe them any money. Well, that I'm sure that's good, but when I went to the tax office, and it was only last week in Jomtien, and told them my circumstances, they didn't want to know, and that was only last week, so you don't need to bother. That's because I didn't remit and will not remit any money whatever from overseas to Thailand in this calendar year. Not 1 cent, not 1 penny. So how can they tax me? Well, they can't, and they're not interested, so they said bugger off, in polite language. And that's not the advice we were given last week. So my problem always with advice is it depends who you ask, It's a bit like go-go bars, depends who you pick up, that kind of thing. So I personally think maybe the best thing might be to wait and see until the TD90, which is one of many tax forms that you would have to fill in if you had overseas income. Wait till that's reprinted with any notes that accompany it. Maybe there'll not be any notes. Maybe we'll never know any more from the Inland Revenue than we know now or don't know. Or maybe we will. So I think it's not wise to rush to do anything yet. It's just my personal opinion, really. Maybe the answer is to bring over Donald Trump, actually. I mean, if he can solve the Ukraine crisis in 24 hours, he should manage this in 24 minutes, Okay, I'm keeping this fairly short to allow time for questions. Finally, the future. Next one. These are the things I think you have to keep your eye on for the future of immigration. One is the belief by some people that your visa status will be linked to tax registration. You know, you won't get a one-year visa unless you show a tax number. Well, maybe it'll happen, but you know, it's a very difficult issue, that. There are many people who have a one-year visa here who don't spend 180 days here. I know several people with retirement visas, but they live abroad part of the time. So they can't get a tax number. They're not here 180 days, so how will they go on? Maybe they'll be barred from having a retirement visa, or extension of stay, who knows? Also, you may not have any visa at all. You can still clock up 180 days, can't you? So 60 days visa exempt on arrival, 30 more days at the immigration, that's 90. A one-day visa on repeat, you're at 180 already. You don't have a visa of any kind. So what's all this business about visas shed light on? Tax status. It's whether you're here 180 days. It's not to do with what visa you have. Many people with the elite, or now called privilege visa, they don't use it as a base for being here all the time. They use it as a convenience for coming in and out, and you know, you get a few free offers, don't you, such as a special line at the airport if it isn't closed, and other perks like, you know, you can have a massage for nothing or discounts on the golf course and that kind of thing. So fine. But the idea that somehow or other your visa determines that you're here 180 days is demonstrably false, and therefore I think this needs looking at carefully. Secondly, there can any time in Thailand be a change of government. I don't think there will be, but you can't rule that out. Or a new section of the poor Thai will come to power and rethink a lot of the things that we've just been talking about this morning. There is also an increasing use of technology, which, you know, I've hinted at here and there. That's going to become more and more. It's on pilot at the minute, but you won't have to get a boarding card separately in a very short time now in Thailand and already abroad, because it'll all be digitalized, you know. I don't believe personally that you'll even need a passport in 10 years. I think a plastic card passport going out, a leather passport, you know what I mean, traditional passport, I don't think they'll be around in about 10 or 15 years. But it's a big subject. But you can say that technology is radically affecting immigration just as it is every other field of life. The future, I know, concerns many people of the TM30 and the TM47. If you don't know what they are, you're probably in trouble. The TM30 is an address form supposed to fill in when you come from abroad. The TM47, 90 days. They are troublesome, you know, whether you need to do it. If you're a retiree, do you really need to keep doing the TM30 every time you go abroad? Well, no, in theory, but if you're trying to renew your driving license, you need a letter from the immigration. That's a different section from reporting your address for 90 days, a different section from if you're renewing your visa. And they might say, oh, we want an up-to-date one. You know, it's a very awkward area. They will die, I'm sure. Digitalization will kill them off. But whether they'll kill them off in my lifetime or yours, I wouldn't like to say. Another thing that's not of a lot of interest to you, I'm sure, but is now being canvassed, is the new Immigration Act to replace the one of 1979. And you may say, oh, well, there have been a lot of changes in immigration since then. Yes, but an Immigration Act doesn't determine how long you get on your visa or what documents you need. It's written in very broad terms, if you read it. It was the visa that for the first time said it might be a good idea to monitor where foreigners lived. But in those days, they weren't thinking of you and I. The Thai government in 1979 was thinking of the thousands of people displaced by the American wars in Vietnam and other places that all finished when Phnom Penh and Saigon and Vientiane fell in 1975. And that war left loads of people, and the repercussions with that are still with us today. And so there is going to be a new Immigration Act, I think, which might, rewrite really a lot of the current assumptions we have, particularly about a paper-based system, which immigration still is. And then finally, to finish on cost-benefit analysis. When you came to Thailand to live, if you did, then you probably, I was a bit different, I was drafted here, but nonetheless, you look at Thailand and say, what is the here that I want? What is it? What are the services in Thailand that I like? Well, that's been turned on its head, many travel specialists believe now, so that the countries are asking, what can you offer me? So instead of you asking what Thailand can offer you, Thailand's asking what can you offer to it? And this is cost-benefit analysis. We're only in the foothills of it, but I think increasingly it's becoming an issue, particularly about money. How much money you're bringing in and so on. I just conclude with semi-humorous, although it's a sad country I'm going to refer to show you how things can be not what they appear. In early 1970s, I worked for a time in Haiti in the Caribbean, which wasn't then a country in chaos as it is now. It had in the firm grip of Francois Duvalier and Jean-Claude, the Papa Doc and Baby Doc. Dictatorship. And when we arrived in Port-au-Prince from Miami, I was amazed that there was no bureaucracy at all. There was a huge notice, bienvenue, French-speaking, welcome, right through, never even looked at your passport, never asked if you needed a passport, absolutely nothing. No check on your baggage right through, and you were given a leaflet that says, enjoy yourself here, and we're very pleased to tell you that no foreigner can be arrested in Haiti without the permission of the president. Oh, okay. So amazing, in French, but you learn to speak French there, you won't speak to anyone, so that's the situation. When we left 3 months later, couldn't go to the airport. You had to queue up in the offices of the secret police in order to get a certificate of exit. And the certificate of exit costs you $100 because they said, well, you have to make sure that you, and that's a lot of money in those days, you have to make sure that you, can support the Haitian economy. You pay the $100. And then they said, by the way, they said it might be wise to pay another $100 at the Tonton Macoute, the secret police, sort of civilian police headquarters. Might be a good idea, they said, to pay another 100 baht. What on earth for? Because they said, well, that will avoid any question at the airport of you being subjected to a full body search or even an anal search. I paid the extra $100. Okay. Are there time for questions a bit? I will hang around at the end for half an hour in case anyone has a personal problem. Not that I can solve it necessarily, but I'm always willing to listen. I was once in the Samaritans 70 years ago.
Yes. Questions? Some questions? Put your hand up. We do have a question from the second speaker. She's trying to fill in time so she can prepare herself. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Ren. Thank you. That was a really interesting talk, and I got a lot out of it. I don't know if you can answer this question, but it's got to have been something that's happened like more than once. I have a friend who passed away who was living here on his retirement visa, and he passed away in February with money in his Thai bank account. But no will. What happens in a situation like that?
The bank will not release the money without the authorization from the Thai court. We call it probate. So either the next of kin or somebody else who can claim a special relationship must, through a lawyer, apply to the Thai court, or the money will never be released without that permission.
And please make a will, okay?
And don't forget to make one.
Where do you stand if you working for charity organization as regards to your visa?
What organization, sorry?
Charities, any charities.
Oh, well, a charity organization, technically there is a volunteer visa for that, but it fell out of disuse rather during the COVID crisis because, people were getting them and they're nothing to do with the charity other than going to the bar at night and supporting the girls there. So it's largely fallen into disuse, and I can only say that if it's a registered charity, that you're very unlikely to have any trouble with it, and the one in charge of the charity could always apply for a visa for you if necessary. But the evidence at the moment is that they're not following up registered charity workers for not having a work permit. It's just not an issue. What is an issue are people working to make money illegally, particularly Chinese at the moment, and they're the ones they're after.
Any more questions, observations, complaints? Nobody's got any complaints about Thai immigration? My goodness. Now, thank you, Barry.
I've got a few.
Oh, one more?
No,
sorry? Oh.
This is a positive comment about immigration, which I never expected to make. We have all had ups and downs with it. But yesterday, after spending 1 week and 2 days, immigration bank, this form, that form, we've all been there. But I thought I'd finished. Suddenly, at 5:30, there is a knock on my door. There is someone in a full police uniform, and I thought, oh my God, what did I do at immigration? This young lady came in and said, actually, she said, there's one more thing on your bank, and we would like an extra photo. She said, but I wanted to save you a trip because I could see how hard it was on you. So she came with an associate. They took my picture, they took my bank statement, we hugged, and off she went. So I just wanted to say, there's really good people everywhere.
Yes,
Thank you.
The new colonel, there's a new one whose name I can't pronounce at the immigration, the one in charge, and he's encouraging public relations in a way that, I know you can always argue and it's a mess and all that, but doing his best to encourage PR. And I'm delighted to hear that was an example.
And talking about delighted, we're delighted with your talk, Barry. Thank you so much. We have a small thank you of our appreciation. Let's take that in case it drops.
It might drop it.
Yeah, there you go. Let's come out here. Or just go. See, you didn't even need to sit down.
No, I didn't need to sit down.
You tell them.
I should, before I go, say the photograph of me up there earlier showed me much fatter than I am now. Lost about 40 kilos, I think, over the last few years. And how did I do it? It's fucking difficult, I'll tell you.